Welcome to the Draft Rankings Show. It's Combine Week, and I'm back, Cody Carpentier from rosterwatch.com. Today, since it's Combine Week, we're going to jump right into it. I'm on my way to Combine right now, so I pre-recorded this bad boy, and I want to talk about the wide receivers. We got 10 minutes. Click that like button, click subscribe, tap in if you're on podcast, on YouTube, wherever. We appreciate you. Follow along on Twitter at Draft Rankings. All right. Top 10 wide receivers heading into Combine Week. These things will probably change coming out because, of course, we're going to get testing, lengths, notes, information about these guys, but we're going to go through it, the top 10 right now. Number one on my list at the wide receiver position is not the one that's on a lot of people's lists. My number one wide receiver is Luther Burdens, 5'11", 205 pounds from Missouri. I'm expecting in the mid 4.4s for the 40-yard dash. I love me some Luther Burden. He had 676 yards this past year and 61 catches, 6 touchdowns. When I think of Luther Burden, I think of Terry McLaurin. Great tempo during early parts of his routes. Ideal build for an alpha wide receiver in today's game. When I talk about the archetype, the 5'11", 200-pound guys, the Odells, the Justin Jeffersons, the Stephon Diggs, the DJ Moores, on and on and on. Yak. Borderline, he's a yak king. Not as much as Malachi Corley last year, but 1,400 of his 2,283 career yards came after the catch. I think he's got the contortionist trait. He's second in college football with 29 missed tackles behind Tedero McMillan, tied with Tedero McMillan, I should say. Breakaway speed, not elite top-of-the-line speed, but breakaway speed. He does tend to fade away on these in the backside of plays, but I love me some Luther Burden in this class. Everyone's ignoring Luther Burden, Emeka Egbuka, etc. And they're just jumping to Tedero McMillan. Not so fast, my friend. Number two, let's go to Emeka Egbuka, the wide receiver from Ohio State, 6'1", 205 pounds. When I think of Emeka Egbuka, I think of Robert Woods, Bobby Trees, USC, Los Angeles Rams. He's going to be a first-round pick. He broke out early, and he played with every stud at Ohio State, including this year with Jeremiah Smith, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Marvin Harrison Jr., Jackson Smith and Jigba. 133 out of 194 catches at Ohio State were for first downs. That's 69%. Nice. All right, number three on my list at the wide receiver position is Tedero McMillan. I'll give it to Tedero McMillan, 6'4", 6'5", whatever it's going to be, 212 pounds. There's expectations he's going to test out of the building. I don't think so. I think what we've heard is he's going to actually be more of a middling athlete, which is fine. It's not his game. His game isn't to dominate as an athletic standpoint. If he was an Adonis like a DK Metcalf or Randy Moss, it'd be a whole different ball game. But he's not quite that guy. I like Tedero McMillan. Everybody in the world's favorite comp for Ted McMillan is Drake London. I see a little more Justin Ross, a little more T. Higgins. I think there's a touch of Equinemius St. Brown in there. Alex says Christian Watson. Alex from rosterwatch.com. I like Ted McMillan, but he is not my wide receiver one. Wide receiver four, we're going to go Matthew Golden from Texas. I watch this guy all year. I do work for orangebloods.com. I watch Texas up and close every single day. Matthew Golden transferred from Houston this past year, and Matthew Golden jumped on the scene at Texas right quick. And all of a sudden, when Isaiah Bond went down with an ankle injury and it kept on holding on, Matthew Golden took that next step forward. I see Jordan Addison. I see some Santonio Holmes. I see some Stephon Diggs. This guy can play football. A third-year guy, played 2 seasons at Houston, proved himself in the special teams department. 21 explosive plays this past year of 20-plus yards, fourth in college football, top of the pack in the SEC, elite catch radius, elite strength and hands. This guy does a lot. He can run the slot 25% of the time. He doesn't present that prototypical size, but I'm not worried about him, potentially being less than 190 pounds if he does weigh in that way. Only 1.88 yards per run. Don't care. I know people say that translates to fantasy points and stuff like this. This guy had 47 catches, almost 800 yards, and 8 touchdowns in the regular season. So I love me some Matthew Golden at wide receiver 4. Wide receiver 5 is a little bit of a projection here. It's Isaiah Bond. He played at Alabama for a couple of years. Isaiah Bond proved himself, made the big catch against Auburn. Everybody remembers that. I think this guy's about to literally take the lid off of Lucas Oil Stadium and take it off. He's going to light that thing on fire in the 40-yard dash. I think that's going to vault his name up to a lot of people's conversations. Why not a Jalen Waddle type? I've seen Jalen Waddle since he was at Alabama. Like, this is just the thing that I see. And the thing about helmet scouting, everyone's like, well, that's a helmet scout. It's the same guy from the same school. Here's the problem, is that when you're at a school for so long, like Nick Saban was, you start to recruit guys that fit archetypes. The archetype of the Waddle thing is something that he recruited to get Isaiah Bond, and that's just the way they play. They literally have extremely similar bodies, extremely similar traits. Bond is a little more explosive. I mean, down to like you're talking about like lengths and like um, weird. It's lower legs. Like his lower legs, they work the same way as Jalen Waddle. Anyway, that's the comp for Isaiah Bond, who is my wide receiver 5. Now, if Travis Hunter was a distinguished wide receiver, for fantasy football purposes, I think he slots in right here because he's technically a DB. I think he's going to play all over it. So you can look at it however you want. From a talent perspective, Travis Hunter is my number 1 graded wide receiver for the sport. In fantasy football purposes, this is where I think he would slot in. I'm going to skip over Travis Hunter. Everybody knows he's a super world talent. I love Travis Hunter. My highest graded offensive player in the draft after Abdul Carter. And I think you obviously, whatever. The Travis Hunter conversation is what it is. Wide receiver 6 would be Trey Harris. Trey Harris, the wide receiver out of Ole Miss, dealt with an injury this year, but he was mighty explosive, otherworldly in what he did at Ole Miss. He played with a lot of talent at Ole Miss. Jordan Watkins is in this draft. Jackson Dart, the quarterback, obviously. Juice Wells, Caden Prescorn, running back Quinshon Judkins was there last year. This is a stud. He was a 3-star coming out of high school. I think you look at Marvin Jones, Keon Coleman, Cedric Tillman, these type of guys for the comps. Cortland Sutton's an interesting one. Played a couple of years at Louisiana Tech before transferring to Ole Miss. He's your prototypical outside wide receiver build. Everything he checks the boxes on is Trey Harris from Ole Miss. I'm gonna love to see what he looks like at the combine this week. Wide receiver 7, Alec Amaner, the wide receiver from Stanford. I mean, a lot of people are comping him to Michael Wilson. I don't see it. I think he's a little more explosive, and I loved me some Michael Wilson coming out of Stanford. My comp is Adam Thielen. This guy had 28% of the Stanford receptions this past year, 33% of their touchdowns. I'm looking at the round 2 in the NFL draft for Alec Amaner. He was first-team freshman All-American in 2023, second-team All-ACC in 2024, and he won the 2023 John Cornish Trophy winner, which was the best Canadian player in college football in 2023. That award has gone to guys like Ollie Chuba Hubbard in the past, a very high-end award. I think he plays over the field. Well, whether it's in the run game, his body control, his hand fighting, he's got good hands, strong hands. I love Alec Amaner as wide receiver 7. Jalen Knoll, who took a big jump up from the Senior Bowl from Iowa State. Jalen Knoll comps favorably to Christian Kirk. He's 5'9.5". That's the official height and weight, 196 pounds. I like what Jalen Knoll brings to the table. This whole tier, after Alec Amaner, it's kind of a tier of guys, from 8 to 12, really, for me. 8 is Jalen Knoll from Iowa State. 9 is Jaden Higgins from Iowa State. He's grown a lot for me over the course of the last month. 10 is Torrey Horton from Colorado State, who dealt with an injury early part of the season. 11, Jack Besh from TCU, transferred from LSU. I love Jack Besh. I want to see what the testing looks like here. If he runs some sub 4.5, this guy might take a big jump into the top 8. And then Jalen Royals from Utah State is my number 12 player. So you asked for 10. I gave you 12 here. Number 8, number 9, number 10 is Jalen Knoll from Iowa State, Jaden Higgins from Iowa State, and Torrey Horton from Colorado State. It's Combine Week, baby. We're going to see 40-yard dashes on Saturday. We're going to be in the stadium in Lucas Oil watching these guys do the gauntlet, run their routes, catch passes, all things football. The NFL draft is right around the corner. Stay tapped in here at the Draft Rankings Show on YouTube and on podcast. Please leave a 5-star review and drop a comment. I appreciate y'all, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.